How you doing, guys? My name is Oscar Sande. I come from Australia. I've been living in Australia for 20 years, but originally from Spain. I always try to disclose where I come from because my English is not always the best, and I use funny words, and I need you to really pay attention to my accent. Within 5 minutes, you should be all right. By the end of this presentation, you will all speak Spanish. So, in this program, we are going to present a beautiful topic, something that it was very dear to me when I came across it. I work in Australia as a clinical nutritionist, and I've got a bachelor's in medical science and nutritional medicine. And I'm very, very excited. I always like to study about physiology and biology. I mean, there were some of the subjects of my degree, and I spent hours in it. And there's so many things that we can actually find in those rounds, in those fields. In this program, we are going to present about the Y chromosome. Okay, the Y chromosome is the gender chromosome that makes men men and distinguishes from the most beautiful gender, which is the female. Okay. It's called the Y chromosome. And I'll be presenting a lesson on biology. And towards the end, it will be a shift. It will be a shift to a spiritual meaning, because I actually believe that God has given us wisdom of His good news of the gospel in absolutely everything. We can find Him in absolutely everything. In biology, in physiology, in nature, anywhere else, He has actually written the information of a savior for the human race. So, for those that went through biology in high school, it will be a refresher. For those that haven't gone to those classes, it will be a little bit like introduction. Okay, I'll go very slow, and I'm sure you all be able to follow along. Well, this is the human cell. Okay, the human cell. Every cell in the body, it doesn't look like this. Okay, so you have neurons, which are the cells of the nervous system. They actually look different, but they do have a number of common denominators. They will all have a nucleus right in the center. They will have things like the cytoplasm or cytosol, which is like the liquid in which things like the mitochondria will swim through. All will have reticulum area and ribosomes to clean up toxins, etc. So though they don't look all of them the same, they do have a number of common denominators. And all your cells, all yours, specifically for you, and it makes you who you are. So that's the nucleus of a cell, of a human cell. Inside the nucleus, we have something called chromosomes. It looks like that big convoluted X in there, as you can see, the chromosomes. So inside those chromosomes, there is your genetical information, who you are. If you have blue eyes, that's because of that information in the chromosome. If I look like a Spaniard with a background in the Muslim world and a background in the Jewish world, it's because from my grandfather's side, I come from the Moors. The Moors were descendants of the Arabs that lived in Spain for 800 years. From another side of my family, I come from the Sephardi Jews. So I've got that part. My father's side of the family is Viking. So some of my uncles do have blue eyes, for instance. Okay, and all that is encaptured in the chromosomes. Inside the chromosomes, there's actually a number of proteins that link together those two lines of information. They match them up together. All right? And then we have the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the powerhouse. So for instance, if you consume something that contains glucose, eventually it will go through the walls of the cell into the mitochondria, and the mitochondria will use that glucose for fuel to generate energy. Everybody has a mitochondria. All your cells in the body will have your mitochondria. Now, the difference is this. The chromosomes form your DNA, your information, your own particular fingerprint. That is you. You are different than me because you have a different DNA. If you are involved in a crime, they will actually check the DNA, and that DNA only fits with you. That's you. Your DNA is different than mine. I want you to understand that very, very clearly. But the DNA is found in the nucleus. In the nucleus of the cell is where your own private, particular information is found. Different color, different hair, different person, all together from me, because of the DNA found where? In the nucleus. Now, this fellow here is called the mitochondria, the powerhouse, the furnace, okay? But the mitochondria is out of the nucleus. It's inside the cell, but out of the nucleus. And guess what? The mitochondria has its own DNA. And that DNA is the one that you see in the screen there, is the round circle DNA. And something that is amazing about that DNA is the following. Yours is exactly the same as mine. So, the DNA here, the one that you see in the center of your screen, the one that is just moving along like that, that is the one in the nucleus that is different for you as it is for me. Different. It makes us different people. The one on the outside, the one in the mitochondria, or what we call mitochondria DNA, is actually the same. Between yours and mine is the same. So if we will be checking the DNA in the mitochondria, it will be exactly the same, yours and mine. And that DNA in the mitochondria, which is the same, comes to you from your mother. It actually came to me from my mother. So my mother in Spain that brought me to life many years ago passed unto me a DNA in the mitochondria that is exactly the same one that your mother in the States, in Canada, in Australia, wherever you were born, passed unto you. Exactly the same thing. In fact, science calls that mitochondria DNA or mitochondria Eve. That's the name that science has actually given it. And he called it mitochondria Eve because it's passed on by the mother. My great-great-great-grandmother had the same mitochondria in the DNA that passed on to all her children, both male and female. And he did the same, a different great-great-great-great-grandmother did the same to you, because all comes passed unto the offspring by the mother. See, in Australia, there are many friends from the Solomon Islands, New Zealand, Maoris, big fellas, lovely guys, people from Samoa, and they're very cool people. So when they say hello to you, they want to grab your hand and, hey, brother from another mother. Well, in reality, they should actually say, hey, brother from the same mother. Because from the mitochondria point of view, the same information comes from an original mother. And that's why science has actually recognized that and has called it, not the biblical science, but the secular science has actually called it mitochondria DNA or mitochondria Eve. So let me explain how this goes. The mother gives you 23 chromosomes that will be placed in the nucleus, that will be found in the nucleus of the cell. Your father gives you 23. As you see in the screen, the mother shares 23 of hers and the father shares 23 of his. And that forms a unique individual, different from anyone else. That will have the information of roughly your height, your metabolism, your body shape, the little pinky that goes in just because mommy's little pinky go in the shoe. All those things will be given by the share of those 23 from the mother and 23 from the father. But the mother will actually share the mitochondrial DNA into the mitochondria. So the nuclear DNA is inherited from all ancestors, both male and female, all the way down to you. The mitochondrial DNA, however, is inherited from a single lineage, and that single lineage is your mother. From the mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-great-grandmother, follow that through, and everybody had the same, so it has to have the same source, the same mother. So, what is science, secular science, saying about this? How is able to explain it? Well, what it actually says is the following, that Mother Eve was a half monkey that lived 190,000 years ago, and there were other lines, but Mother Eve tended to actually go through in that line, and that's how we have the different races, but they all come through the same line of a mother. Okay? Now I want you to notice that date, 190,000 years ago. That's when Mother Eve, according to secular science, was actually in place, came up with that information in the mitochondria, and that DNA has been passed on all of us. The L0, L5, L4, L6, L1, L2, all those things, all those lines that you see there on your screen, they are trying to tell us that they were just extinct. So in other words, there is no recollection of their existence, but we just put it in the picture. They were extinct. That line never prospered forward. All right? Now, those are the 23 pairs of the chromosomes that are actually shared 23 by mom and 23 by dad. Okay, the last one is the gender one. So the gender is what will make you a male or a female. Okay, there is some mutations that will happen once every 10,000 or once every 20,000 individuals. And there are many contributing factors. Exposure to chemicals, exposure to radiation. There's many factors, in fact, that can actually alter that gender chromosome. And you might actually end up with some individuals that will have some issues with the gender chromosomes. For instance, there is a number of conditions, the X0 chromosome, that will affect 1 in 20,000 individuals, or the XXY chromosome, and those individuals normally will not be able to procreate, will not be able to have their own descendants, because their sexual organs are actually not fully developed, simply because of that gender chromosome issue or mutation that had occurred. For the reasons are many, for a number of reasons. Okay, but as a norm, you will either be XY if you are a male, or you will be XX and if you are a female. So sometimes a very simple text, a very simple test will be able to tell us what gender we are. If we are XY, that will be male. That means that your over 3 trillion cells in your body are actually male identification cells. And if you are XX, by a simple DNA test, That means that over 3 trillion cells in your body are telling you that you have female cells in your body. Okay? So nowadays, genetics have improved to that point, to that level in which it clarifies for many of us what we are, male or female. Now, the Y chromosome is given by your daddy. Your father gives you the Y chromosome. Okay? The X chromosome is brought to you by your mother. So mothers can only give XX. So if you're a female, your mother has only given you one X. The father has given you one X. So in reality, the one that actually determines if you will be a male or if you will be a female is not your mom, is your dad. Because your dad has both. Has the Y to give or the X to give. So if he gives the X, you will end up being a female. If your father gives the Y, you will end up being a male. I remember back in Spain, there was a neighbor of ours, and he had 3 girls. And he used to complain and say, "This woman of mine cannot give me a boy." Well, in reality, according to genetics, he was the one that could not give her a boy, because the Y comes from the father. Now, despite the fact that the entire genetic pool in the nucleus, all the chromosomes, are different and makes you an individual, the Y chromosome is exactly the same. If you are a male, it's exactly the same for every single male human being in the entire earth. I do have a foster son, an adopted son. He's 6. And he is not my biological son. However, the Y chromosome is exactly the same. Despite the fact that I am not his real biological father, the Y chromosome is exactly the same. In fact, if you're a male watching this program and you live in India and I was born in Spain, the Y chromosome is exactly the same. Your father passed it on to you, my father passed it on to me, and it's exactly the same Y chromosome. So, the mother can give always an X. The father, however, will be able to give an X or a Y. If he gives you an X, you will end up being a female. If he gives you a Y, you will become a male. Okay, XX or XY. Now, let me see how science calls this. Science calls it the chromosome Y or the chromosome Adam. Why? Because that particular chromosome, the Y, is actually the same for every single male on Earth. And is only passed on to you by your father. And my father's Y chromosome passed on to me is the same one that I will be passing on to my son. I've got a biological son, a 16-year-old son. So he has my Y chromosome, the same that my non-biological son of 6 years old. And science calls it, secular science calls it, chromosome Y or chromosome Adam. But notice what it says. Adam was around 70,000 years ago. And out of Adam, we have the different races there. A, B, C, E, D, etc. The Australians, the Indians, the Canadians, okay? They're all there. There is a problem though. I'll show you the problem. Now, according to science, Eve was around 190,000 years ago. And then Adam came into the picture, the one that started giving our gender, around 70,000 years ago. So the question that I've got for you is the following. What was Eve doing for over 100,000 years? I mean, there's a lot of knitting to do in such an amount of time. What was she doing this 100,000 years? She was bored. Well, obviously there must be a different explanation. And it is very, very significant because, notice this, the Bible tells of an amazing story about an individual that was a male that was the father of the human race. And also tells us about an individual, a female, that was the mother of the human race. In fact, the name Eve means the mother of all of us. That's what the meaning of the name is. The mother of all of us. Now, think about this. Eve, or a female, cannot produce a male. Did you get that? A female cannot produce a male because, genetically speaking, from the gender chromosome point of view, she does not have a male chromosome to produce a male. However, a male can produce both a female or a male because he has the X for a female and the Y for a male. Now, the Bible tells us that the woman came from men, not men from woman. From a chromosome point of view, that's actually called science. The woman had to come from male because the woman, from a man, because the woman did not have the chromosome to create a male. But the male had it. Maybe the Bible was not that off after all, and I'm just even wondering how the author of that book, which was Moses, knew about genetics. Now, over the years, I heard many people telling me that the Bible is very macho-oriented, very male-oriented, you know. And think about this. I'll just read to you something, okay? And this is just an example that happens in the scriptures, in the Bible, for a long time. When it talks about the genealogies, okay? For instance, I'll read you this one from the Gospel of Matthew, which is in the New Testament. And it just describes the genealogy, a long genealogy that takes us to Jesus Christ, okay? And it just starts like this. Abraham begot Isaac, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Judah begot Perez and Sereth by Tamar. Perez begot Ethron, etc., etc., etc. And you know what people think? Oh, there you go. There's the macho again. There's the male patriarchal society that is just want to show off that they are male and they're the strongest, etc. No. Male begets male. It was Abraham that passed on like a torch that Y chromosome to create Isaac, to actually make a male Isaac. And it was Isaac, the one that had the Y chromosome as a torch, as one of those Olympic torches, that passed on to Jacob, the Y chromosome. Now, you can read it as a macho book or as a patriarchal book, whatever. I'm telling you that it's actually a biology class. The Y chromosome of Abraham begot Isaac. And the Y chromosome of Isaac, which happened to be the same all through history from the chromosome Adam, was passed on to Jacob and to Judah, and so on and so forth. Now, I was excited. When I actually found this out, I was very, very excited. By the way, I was actually studying biology, okay, at university. So I'm actually looking through at a secular university, and I'm actually looking at through the biology point of view. I I was looking at the exponential growth of the population on Earth. Look how dramatic is going to be the conditions in a very few years. In the year 2000, 6 billion people were living on Earth. They are expecting 12 billion by 2050. Okay, and then it goes right up, very, very exponential. So I was very, very curious about a study that was found in the US Census Bureau International database. And what they did was the following. They gathered the population rate. They gathered the population in 2005, I believe it was, 2005. And that population in 2005 was getting very, very close to the 7 billion people. And then they actually gather information, historical records, historical information from births at churches, expectations of growth throughout history, taking an era, because obviously there are wars and destruction and pestilences and disasters, natural disasters that can actually impact on the population. And they were all putting it in a database, and to that database there was a mathematical calculation. They wanted to actually find out what was the population many, many years back. And they actually tried to bring the population, they wanted to find out how many people were living on Earth approximately with the same exponential growth that we can see today, with the formula of that curve that we can actually see today, how many people were living on Earth 10,000 years BC. So 10,000 years before Christ was born. Okay? So roughly about 12,000 years ago. And it's interesting because when they put all the data through and when they made the mathematical calculations according to that exponential curve, the results came and showed the following: that you ran out of people by 4,000 or 5,000 BC. In other words, from the mathematical point of view, one Eve and one Adam, one Eve that would pass onto all her descendants the mitochondria DNA, identical for everybody, the mother of all, and one father, the one that will actually pass the gender chromosome and the Y chromosome to every male on this earth. If they were living around 6,000 years ago, from a mathematical point of view only, they could actually create 7 billion people living on Earth today, just based on mathematics and an exponential curve. And that was by the US Census Bureau of International Database. That was fascinating. That was fascinating, just to think that two individuals 6,000 years ago could actually create all this amount of people from a mathematical point of view and bring unto us their genetical information of gender and also in the mitochondria. Well, so I was very, very excited. I wanted to find out about my Y chromosome. I'm a man, so I wanted to find out about my Y chromosome. And I thought, okay, let's go to find out about the male chromosome. And the gentlemen that are here and the gentlemen in the audience, you want to find out? You want to find out who you are? What makes you a man? Okay, what makes you that Y that stands tall as a macho man among all these women? Well, this is actually a photo of the chromosome. Now, friends, is there any question why chromosome X is called chromosome X? No question whatsoever. We all know why X is called X. Can you please explain to me why the Chihuahua is called the Y chromosome. Oh, all my macho just dropped after I saw that through the microscope image, that microscope image there. What happened to us? Man, what actually happened to us? We just shrunk. I think I'm looking at that and it explains so many things, explains so many things, gentlemen. The other day I was in the bank and I needed to actually clear up a check. And there was an old lady and an old man. The old lady was walking with confidence towards the teller of the bank, towards the person that was going to help them there behind the desk. The man was just behind. They both arrived at the line together. They were husband and wife. And right when the time was to give the final step, something happened. The lady did the step forward and the gentleman did a step backward. She did all the talking. She figured out what was happening with their pension. There was an issue with they didn't get paid a pension or something like that. And then she figured it out, worked it together, and they both went home. And I saw that and said, the Y chromosome. That's the Y chromosome. The wimp, lack of backbone, lack of stamina. Friends, nowadays, somebody knocks at the door of a house at 11 o'clock at night, and the husband says to the wife, you go and check who they are. You know why? The Y chromosome. Friends, the young people don't even know today where the waistline is. So if they don't know where the waistline is, how would they know where the brain is? And I'm just wondering, could it be the Y chromosome? The female, 20 years of age, already looking at a very diligent in the studies. The boy, playing Xbox until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, being awakened by mom, breakfast on the table, mom makes the bread, mom makes the bed for him, ties up his bedroom, he goes half asleep to university, and he's spending his time on his mobile, while the female is actually studying. Do you know that's what you meant to do at uni? Study and getting wonderful marks. Do you know why? Because of the Y chromosome. That's the reason why. We have moved. The society has made this type of man, a couch potato, easygoing, will not lift up a finger, and all has to do with the Y chromosome. In fact, this is the image of men today. Homer Simpson, a guy that will do nothing, he will cheat, he will be a lazy worker, he will not stand up firm for his family, he will not be wise, he will be a time waster, while the woman will do all the work around the house, plus all the work outside. Then you have it in their children. This fella has a little boy that is like the son of the devil. While the sister, she is the one that plays the instruments. She is the one that is the wisest in the class. Why? Because of the Y chromosome. The image of man today is that. A guy that is a self-centered man that only looks for his own affections. I work with families and with children with learning disabilities. Okay? In Australia, 1 in 56 boys will suffer from autism. 1 in 56. But if the question is in regards to girls, it will be 1 in 156. We know, the studies already show it over and over. The data is there. If you deliver twins, and those twins are a male and a female, and they get sick, and you're working as a nurse in that hospital, you left them there at night before you went home, and your shift is starting in the morning, and as you get into your destination, as you're heading towards the room, you actually hear that one of the twins had died during the night. You can bet your money it would probably be the boy. That's what the data shows. We are the weakest of both genders. And there's something going on with the Y chromosome. You see, the families that we deal with children with learning disabilities and autism, you know who brings the boy that suffers from autism to see me? In great majority of cases, the mother. You know why? In many of those cases, the father has left. He could not put up with the pressure. He could not hold the pressure of having a boy with disabilities. It's too hard for him. And the ones that remain, the ones that are still there, guess what? The mother is complaining to me saying, oh, my husband is just lose his temper. He doesn't have any patience with my boy. And it makes it worse because the boy gets defensive and he wants to plug his ears. And then to release the pressure, the husband just goes, oh, I need to go for a break. Boom. And he takes off for 6 hours. So he's left in the house. The boy is left with mom to look after him and to put up with everything else and to clean the house because the weakest Y chromosome has left. Took off. Could not deal with the pressure. There's something wrong with the Y chromosome. There's actually something wrong with the Y chromosome. Science actually revealed that in each end of the Y chromosome appears to be a protein that is disintegrating the length and the size of the Y chromosome. They cannot determine for how long this has been happening, but they're actually anticipating that at some point in the past, the Y chromosome, it appeared to be a little bit bigger. It's like we have been shrinking on a manhood and our own responsibilities as men. I want to share with you something. I'm going to read the genealogy of Jesus as I started to read it just before. And I'm just going to read a number of names and then we'll go, and there's a lot of names here because it's talking about from all the way from Abraham to Jesus. So there's a lot of generations listed there. So I'll just read a little bit from the beginning and then I'll jump right down to almost the very end of Jesus' genealogy as he's listed in Matthew. I'll share with you the following. It says, Abraham, starts from Abraham, it says, Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob. Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Judah begot Perez, and on and on and on. And it goes all the way down. And then we catch on towards the end. There's a different Jacob. Because, the name repeated, through the generations. And there is another Jacob. This is a different Jacob. Towards the end, it says the following. And I want you to pay attention to this. And Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. Did you catch that? See, I want you to notice the torch. the Y chromosome torch. Abraham passes the torch to Isaac. Isaac passes the torch to Jacob. Jacob passes the torch to Judah. Judah passes the torch to Perez, and so on and so on. And the torch is going, and is going. And then there is another Jacob that receives the torch. Boom! And Jacob passes the torch to Joseph. And Joseph is told, we are told, is the husband of Mary. By whom? By Mary, it was born Jesus Christ. Question: did Jacob pass the torch of the Y chromosome to Jesus? No. Jacob was the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus Christ. Now, did Mary pass on to Jesus the mitochondrial DNA that makes us from the same mother? Yes or not? Yes. Mary passed on to Jesus the mitochondria DNA, the mitochondria Eve that makes him our brother because he is from the same mother. But Joseph did not pass the Y chromosome to Jesus. But Jesus was a boy, a baby boy. A baby boy that stood up for the weak, that protected those that were in trouble, that actually looked after those that needed help. Who passed on to Jesus the Y chromosome? Remember, the Y chromosome is only passed on to the boy by the father. The father passed on to the boy the Y chromosome. So who passed on to Jesus the Y chromosome? The Father, the Son of God. He passed on to him the Y chromosome. And you know what? I have no doubt that no little boy will feel fearful of coming close to Jesus. Because that Y chromosome is the Y chromosome of Jesus Christ, the one that he had, could not harm a little boy. There are boys now that cannot be near men because of the weakened Y chromosome from Adam. I'm pretty sure that there were no women that would feel threatened by being near Jesus, or that thought that somehow Jesus will be taking advantage of their body or their mind or their capabilities. No women will be feeling threatened by Jesus. Why? Because they sense that before them was a real man. A man that had a chromosome that will help them, that will actually protect them and will not harm them. You know what? Many of us wonder, why am I not the father that I'm meant to be? Why am I not the husband that I'm meant to be? Why am I not the worker that I'm meant to be? Why I just collapse under pressure? Why? The reason is because of the Y chromosome. We're living in the Y generation, and the Y generation has a problem with the Y chromosome. And you cannot stand tall with the chromosome that your earthly father passed on to you. You cannot actually be the man that you're meant to be with the Y chromosome that your father passed on to you. You cannot actually be the husband that you need to do, that your wife needs you to be, with the Y chromosome that your earthly father passed on to you. You cannot be the father that you're meant to with the Y chromosome that your father passed on to you. Because it's weakened. Because it's has shrunk. Because it's self-centered and selfish. Because it's just a wimp. And it has no backbone, has collapsed and shrunk. You actually need another Y chromosome. You actually need entire new Y chromosome. Yours is not going to make you the man that you need to be. We are losing because of the weakened Y chromosome. I want you to show you where to get the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome that comes from above. Okay? A different one. One that stands still, that stands strong, that will look after your children, that will look after your wife, that will rejoice and be glad, that will be anxious for nothing, but in all things, with prayer and supplication through thanksgiving, you will let your requests be known to your Father. A new Father. Where do you get that from? I'll show you. I'm showing you this photo. I'll show you another one. See if we can. Can you see the Y chromosome and the X chromosome there? I'll show it to you again in a different photo. Can you see it? Some of you still can't see it. I'll show it to you. I'll outline it for you. There you go. That's the Y chromosome that your Heavenly Father wants to give you. It's the power that He wants to bestow upon you. He wants to make you a real man, one that will defend the weak, one that will support and protect and be standing strong for your family and for those around you. One that will actually give you the meekness, and your meekness will be known to all men because the time is near. How do you get that? You get that at the time in which your life dies and is born again at the cross of Jesus Christ. When we go to the cross of Jesus and we kneel down there, it's amazing because when we kneel down there, we look very similar to that weakened Chihuahua type of Y chromosome. And we say, I am weak, you are strong, I need you as my Father. And you had told me that you want me as your son. Would you take me? And it's amazing because we go from the weakened chromosome to standing tall and saying, thank you for adopting me into your family. It's when your spirit within you says, Abba, Father. When His chromosome is in you, transforming your character into His image. What a beautiful experience. There's many around that have never encountered the cross of Jesus Christ. Many out in the world, in the secular world, and sadly to say, many even among the Christian belief and faith. They have encountered many things, but they haven't actually encountered the cross. And say, as Paul said, I am crucified with Christ. Therefore, it is no longer I that lives, but Christ and His chromosome that lives in me. And the life that now I live it because He empowers me. He gives me, He shows me. He's moving me from within and He's changing me from within. No cross, no new birth, no new birth, no new chromosome, no new power. I'm inviting you today to accept Him as your daddy, as your Father, and He will share with you His strength and His might. Thank you for watching.